Hi guys, welcome back to the inventory video series. This is the second video. In the last video we had a look at creating the visual layout of the inventory and the visual layout of the slots. We did a little bit of setting up functions to kind of pull information and get things set correctly where we wanted them to. What we're going to have a look at in this video is just setting up some more menus that we'll use and get kind of programmed in later on. So what we're going to start with is a canvas panel, another canvas panel for our item menu. So we'll just do it off to one side and then we'll position it where it's needed afterwards. So we're going to set the X size to 400. And we'll set the Y size also to 400. And we're going to do something similar to what we did before. We're going to use an image. Just drop that in the canvas panel. Let's just make sure this is renamed to item menu. And this image is just going to be, again, background color. We'll call it item. And we'll set the anchors to fit to corners and just set all those offsets to 0, 0, 0. In terms of the brush, we'll change the color and opacity. We'll just make it slightly gray, like so. And we're going to again use the good old vertical box. So we'll just click and drag that onto the item menu and just use the anchors to fill that out to the sides as well. So we're going to use a combination of text and buttons here. We're going to start by just adding some text onto the top. I'm going to make this text black font. We'll make sure that it's centered. And we're not going to actually put any text in because this is going to be context sensitive to whichever button we've pressed. So we'll set up some code to actually feed in the correct value later on. We're going to need some buttons, so let's just have a look for some buttons, and we'll just add these in here. So I'm just going to add 3 buttons in, and just to make sure that these all fill out, I'm just going to select each of the components, so the text and the 3 buttons, and I'm just going to use the fill button. And this little menu is looking a little big, so I think what we'll do is we'll grab the item menu canvas panel from the left and we'll just click and drag it until it's an acceptable size. There we go. So we're going to need some text on each of the buttons, so let's just grab some text onto each of those. There we go. And the first one we're going to leave again as just text block because we're going to have a binding which will pull in the correct text. This top button is going to be sort of the use button, so depending on what type of item it is, that text will say something different. So it might say heal or reload or something along those lines. This middle text is going to have some text in it. It's going to say toss item. We're going to set that to black, and the last one is just going to say close because it's going to close the menu off. So again, we'll set that to black. So just to make the buttons look a little nicer, I'm just going to select all 3 of those, and I'm going to have a look at the padding under where is it? That one there, that one there. Is it under style? No. Interaction. Layout. There we go. So we're just going to set the padding left and right to be 10, and we'll set in between each button we'll set 5 pixels of padding. So it just gives us a little bit of a border around each button. And I think as well we'll just to delineate the buttons a little bit more from the background, we'll make the background color a little bit darker as well. Something like that. There we go. Spot on. So let's make sure that this menu is centered. So we're going to grab the item menu canvas panel let's have a look at its size. So it's 400 in size. We're going to make sure it's centered in terms of its anchor, then set the X position to -200. That will center it directly in the middle. And then in terms of the Y height, let's just round that to a nice 268, and that can just be -134, and that will give us a nice centered menu there. So we're going to create another 2 menus because the toss item is going to be used for both stackable and non-stackable items. We want to give the player an option to get rid of a certain amount of stackable items rather than just removing all of them. So we're going to create another canvas panel. And let's just set this to be 400 wide again, and we'll set the Y height to something like 200 to start with. It's going to be very similar to the other menu we've just done. This is going to be the toss single menu. That's going to be background toss single. Let's just make it a nice grey colour. In fact, what we'll do is we'll grab the text from this one, the colour, sorry, from this one, and we can just drag and drop that colour up the top there to save it, and we'll do the same. We'll apply it back onto this one here, so we can just click that one there. So let's get this filled to the backgrounds, to the corners, sorry, using the anchor, and we're going to have to add in another vertical box. So set your anchors to fill out to the corners, and let's get some text in there. So this is going to be the sort of confirm toss window. So it's going to be centered there as well. Let's just grab the color, set to black. So for the singular item, all we really need are 2 buttons. We're going to have one which is going to be, confirm toss. So we're going to call that one toss single confirm button, and this one's going to be toss single cancel button as well. So we're going to need some text on there, some text on each button itself, and we'll do as we did before. We'll grab each of those elements inside the vertical box and just use the fill command and just center that text. There we go. And we'll probably just want to add some padding to those as well. So let's make that 10, 5, 10, 5. There we go. So we'll have to change the text. Make sure we can spell that properly. So that's going to be confirm. And we'll set the text to be black. And that one's just going to be close. And we'll set that one to be black as well. So similar to before, let's grab that menu there. Let's make sure that it's anchored to the middle, and we can set its positions properly. So this is going to be -200, and it's going to be -100 that way. So things will look a little messy. We've got things stacked up on top of each other. We do need to make sure that we set the Z order for each of these panels. So the inventory panel, the main one, the Z order is going to be 0 because it's the furthest back menu. The item menu is going to be set to 1, and the toss menus are going to be set to 2. So we're going to just right click and copy this toss menu here, and on the canvas panel we're just going to say paste to get a duplicated version of the toss menu. So let's just rename this one to toss multi, and we'll just set the positions to center it as before. So we are going to have to add another element to this panel here. We're going to add a horizontal box, and this is just going to go inside the toss multi. It's going to go inside the vertical box, and it's going to go between the confirm toss text and the confirm button. So you can see in the hierarchy here the order that things are. So there's the text, there's the horizontal box, and the buttons and so forth. Just because we've copied this, we do need to make sure that we just rename these buttons. So this is going to be confirm multi, and this one's going to be close multi, multi-o. There we go. So the horizontal box, because of the size of well, having an extra row in, we're going to have to make this box a little bigger in terms of the panel, the toss multi panel. So I think what we'll do is we'll make it as tall as the original item menu behind. So just make that scale that up a little bit bigger, and just grab all of the components inside the vertical box, and we're just going to say fill. So that looks roughly okay. So the next bit to do is just to add stuff inside this horizontal box here. So the idea is we're going to have a button, then we're going to have an empty space with the number, and then another button on the other side. So let's start by just adding in some buttons. So we're going to add a button on top of that horizontal box, just to put it over there. We're going to add another canvas panel in the middle, so we can add that onto the horizontal box as well, and then a final button again. There we go. So those are the three components there. Let's just select all three, and we just want to make sure that we press fill to fill them across. So the first button on the left is going to be the decrement toss button, and the one on the right is going to be the increment toss button. So we'll use them to add and subtract amounts from the toss amount. So we're going to add an image into the canvas panel in the middle. Make sure we use the anchors to set to the edges, and just set all the offsets to 0. We'll set the decrement and increment toss buttons in terms of the padding. We'll set the left to 10 and the right to 10, and we'll set the top and bottom to 5 and 5 as well. Oh no, that should be 10 and then 5. There we go. Just so we get a nice consistent look with the other buttons that are already there. So each of those buttons needs some text. Let's just grab some text on top of those. And each of those text blocks are just going to have an arrow on them, and we'll set them to be black as well. There we go. So this will decrease the amount, and this will increase the amount. The final piece of text is just to go inside the canvas panel itself. So this will be the actual amount that it will be getting thrown away. So set the color to black, just set it to be center aligned. We can pop it into the middle as well, and we're just going to push it down there. What I'm going to do is just temporarily set the number to 0, just so that I can double check that it's going to fit in correctly. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so again, just make sure everything is named that needs to be named, especially things like buttons and things that are going to be variables. Before we finish with this, we'll just make sure each panel itself, over on the hierarchy, we just select all of those and just set all of them to be variables. So we'll have to do this one at a time. Just set to be a variable. And the way you can tell that widgets are variables is the text will show up bold in the hierarchy. Okay, so just compile and save that, those are the menus pretty much done. We will come back and apply the correct binding and such when we get back to doing some code. So we'll wrap that up there. The next video will have a look at setting up the inventory structure and the pickups for the pickup items.